I swallowed hard but held my ground. A challenge. I, Nadia Harmon, challenge you to a duel. The laughter only grew. Some mages doubled over, unable to contain their mirth, while others jeered outright. The idea was preposterous. Never in the history of Burrowton had someone without magic issued a duel against an archmage. I felt the burn of embarrassment creep up my neck, but I refused to look away. Hello there, and welcome. This session is designed to help you ease into deep, restful sleep. We'll begin with a simple meditation to calm your body and quiet your mind. Then, as you drift closer to sleep, I'll introduce a gentle bedtime story, just enough to carry you into your dreams. Before we begin, press the like button and subscribe for more sleep story videos. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment saying where you're listening from and what time. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a deep breath in and out. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale gently. One more time, inhale deeply, filling your lungs with fresh, soothing air. And as you exhale, let go of the day, releasing any tension, any thoughts that no longer serve you. With each breath, feel your body becoming lighter, more at ease, sinking into comfort. You're doing great. Next, bring your awareness to the top of your head. Imagine a warm, gentle light resting there, like the soft glow of a bedside lamp. This light begins to spread slowly, easing away any tension in your forehead, softening the space between your eyebrows, relaxing your eyelids, your cheeks, your jaw. There's nothing you need to hold on to. Just let everything soften, loosen, unwind. Feel your shoulders drop slightly as if a weight has been lifted. Your arms become heavy, sinking into deep relaxation. With every breath, this warmth moves lower, your chest rising and falling effortlessly, your stomach soft and calm, your legs and feet completely at rest. The world around you fades into quiet. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just this moment, just rest. Imagine yourself wrapped in a cozy, soft blanket of stillness, safe, warm, and peaceful. Each breath carries you deeper into comfort, deeper into rest, deeper into sleep. And here's tonight's cozy bedtime story. The Duelist's Code. I stepped into the bustling town square of Burrowton, my heart hammering against my ribs. The marketplace was teeming with life, merchants shouting over their wares, children weaving through the crowd with laughter, and the ever-present scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the air. But none of that mattered right now. Today, Burrowton gathered for the grand tournament of arcane might, and today I would do the unthinkable. I clenched my fists, the weight of my decision settling heavily on my shoulders. Every fiber of my being told me this was madness. I was no mage. I had no magic. I had no business standing here amongst the greatest spellcasters in the realm. Yet, my feet carried me forward until I stood at the foot of the grand marble podium where Archmage Valor presided over the opening ceremony. Valor was a legend. The most powerful spellcaster Burroten had ever known. His presence alone commanded the awe and respect of all who laid eyes upon him. Clad in flowing robes of deep violet, his silver hair cascaded down his back like a river of moonlight. His piercing gaze swept over the assembled mages, brimming with confidence and control. I took a deep breath and threw the heavy leather gauntlet onto the ground before him. The sharp sound it made as it struck the stone sent a hush through the square. The crowd, once lively and boisterous, fell into stunned silence before bursting into laughter. "What is this?" Valor's voice was smooth, yet laced with amusement. I swallowed hard, but held my ground. "A challenge. I, Nadia Harmon, challenge you to a duel." The laughter only grew. Some mages doubled over, unable to contain their mirth, while others jeered outright. The idea was preposterous. Never in the history of Burroten had someone without magic issued a duel against an archmage. I felt the burn of embarrassment creep up my neck, but I refused to look away. Valor smirked, descending the steps of the podium until he loomed over me. "You, a common girl, challenge me, the Archmage of Burroten, to a duel?" I met his gaze and nodded. "Yes." His smirk deepened. "And what, pray tell, makes you think you stand a chance?" "I don't," I admitted. "But that doesn't mean I won't try." For a moment there was only silence between us. Then, to my surprise, Valor threw his head back and laughed. It wasn't the cruel laughter of the crowd, but one of genuine amusement. He looked down at me, his eyes glinting with intrigue. "Very well," he said. "I accept your challenge. 1 week from now at high noon we shall duel. Prepare yourself as best as you can. There will be no mercy." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The laughter died instantly. No one had expected him to take my challenge seriously, least of all me. I exhaled, the reality of what I had just done crashing down on me. There was no way to back out now. 1 week. 1 week to prepare for a duel I had no chance of winning. 1 week to prove that even without magic, I was not to be underestimated. Finn's voice echoed in my ears, an urgent, desperate plea. "Nadia, this is madness. Valor isn't just any duelist. He's a monster. He doesn't lose." I didn't turn around. I didn't stop moving. I had already made my choice, and I would see it through. "You're not listening to me," Finn snapped, rushing ahead to block my path. His dark eyes flashed with frustration. "He will kill you." "I don't need to beat him at his own game," I said, keeping my voice steady, confident. "I just need to beat him." Finn exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "You don't have magic. You don't have experience. What do you have?" "A plan," I said simply. "And I needed Mistress Calla to make it work." Mistress Calla lived in the ruins of the Old Quarter, a district long abandoned after the mage lords declared it unfit for habitation. It was said she once had power, influence, and a name whispered with reverence and fear. but that was a lifetime ago. Now she was just a ghost in a forgotten place. When I finally found her, she was seated atop a broken column, whittling a piece of wood with a small knife. Her silver hair was tied back, her eyes sharp as they flicked toward me. "You're not lost," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," I said. "I need to learn." She let out a dry chuckle. "Everyone who comes to me does. I want to beat Valor." That got her attention. She tilted her head, regarding me as if I were an oddity she wasn't sure how to categorize. "You? Against him?" I nodded. "You have magic?" "No," she smirked, hopping down from her perch. "Then you'll lose." "Not if you train me." Mistress Calla circled me like a predator assessing a potential meal. "I teach deception, misdirection, tricks. Valor is a hammer, and you want to be the shadow he swings at and misses." She paused, then added, "What makes you think you can learn?" "Because I have to," I said. "And because I'm not asking you to teach me how to fight. I'm asking you to teach me how to make him lose." Something flickered in her expression, something almost like approval. "3 days," she said. "I'll see what you're made of." Mistress Calla was ruthless. By the first day's end, I had bruises in places I didn't know could bruise. She taught me to move unpredictably, to faint, to let my body lie while my mind stayed 5 steps ahead. She taught me how to read an opponent's tells, the small shifts in weight, the tension in their shoulders. Every move, every breath, a conversation that I had never learned to hear before. By the second day, I was exhausted beyond reason. Calla did not allow rest. If I stumbled, she made me get up. If I failed, she made me do it again, and again, and again. By the 3rd day, something clicked. I saw patterns where before there had been only chaos. I learned that hesitation was a weapon, that confidence could be faked, that the illusion of weakness was often more dangerous than strength itself. And more than anything, I learned to believe that I could win. On the 4th day, Calla gave me a single piece of advice. "Valor wins because people play by his rules. Don't." She handed me a small, unassuming object, an old cracked pendant. "Wear this." I turned it over in my palm. "What does it do?" "Nothing," she said. "But he doesn't know that." A slow smile spread across my face. The duel was set for dawn. The first lesson Mistress Calla drilled into me was this: power isn't always about strength. It's about control. And sometimes, control means letting your enemy think they have already won. Valor had always been stronger than me. That was undeniable. His magic came to him as naturally as breathing. He was a storm barely contained in human form, and I had seen him level entire fields with a flick of his wrist. Against raw power like that, I had no chance of winning in a fair fight. But Mistress Calla had made one thing very clear. Fights are never fair. Not if you want to win. The training yard was quiet except for the rhythmic crunch of my boots against the packed earth. Valor stood across from me, arms folded, an amused smirk tugging at his lips. He wasn't worried. That was his first mistake. Mistress Calla's voice echoed in my mind. I had done exactly that. I had spent days watching Valor spar against others, cataloging his habits, the way he always led with his right hand, the subtle twitch of his fingers before he cast a spell, the overconfidence that left him open just long enough for an opponent to strike, if they were fast enough. I wasn't fast enough. Not in the way he expected, but I didn't need to be. Mistress Calla had taught me the art of deception. A well-placed feint, a trick of the eye, a moment of distraction. These were my weapons, and tonight I was going to use them. Valor tilted his head. Are you just going to stand there? His voice carried the same arrogance it always did. Or are you going to at least try to fight? I let my shoulders drop slightly, let doubt flicker across my face. A deliberate tell, subtle enough to seem real. His smirk widened. He thought I was nervous. Good. I lunged. Not at him, never at him. My foot landed short, my hand darting to my belt where a small smoke bomb rested. In one swift motion, I smashed it against the ground. The world exploded in thick, curling fog, swallowing us both whole. Valor laughed. Really, Nadia? Is that the best you can? I moved before he could finish, slipping through the smoke, silent as a shadow. He had power, but he relied on sight. I had learned to fight blind. I had counted his steps before the fog had taken us. I knew where he stood, and I knew he would lash out with magic the moment he sensed movement. He was predictable that way. A gust of wind tore through the smoke, clearing it in seconds. Valor's eyes darted around, searching. His frustration was quick to surface. Coward, he muttered. I grinned. He still hadn't noticed the thin wire looped around his ankle. I gave the wire a sharp tug, and Valor stumbled. It wasn't enough to take him down, but it was enough to break his focus. And without focus, his magic faltered. He barely had time to recover before I struck again. A feint to his left, a real strike to his right. He dodged the first and fell straight into the second. My wooden training blade rapped against his ribs, not hard enough to injure, but enough to sting. His eyes widened. You... I didn't give him time to finish. A retreating step, a slight stagger, feigned, of course, just enough to tempt him forward. He took the bait, lunging at me, magic crackling in his palm. I threw another smoke bomb. He growled in frustration as the fog enveloped him once more. He swung wildly, trying to hit me with a spell, but I was already gone, slipping around him, setting another trap. This was how I won. Not with strength, but with misdirection, with trickery. Valor's anger made him reckless. He lashed out blindly, magic tearing through the air. I let him. Every wasted attack drained his energy. Every missed strike fed his frustration. And the more frustrated he became, the sloppier he fought. I waited for the right moment. The second his magic faltered, I struck again. A twist of his wrist, a sharp kick to his shin, another wire pulled tight. He went down hard this time, cursing as he hit the dirt. Silence stretched between us. I stood over him, my training blade pressed lightly to his throat. His chest rose and fell with rapid breaths, his eyes still wide with disbelief. Well, I said, grinning. That was easy. Vaylor scowled, but there was something else in his expression. A flicker of something that looked suspiciously like respect. Mistress Calla's voice echoed in my mind once more. I had done exactly that. I stood at the edge of the dueling platform, heart pounding against my ribs, as the sneers of my rivals echoed in my ears. Their laughter was sharp, cutting through the cool evening air like blades. They didn't even try to hide their disdain. To them, I was a pretender, a fool playing at a game meant for the truly gifted. "Is she serious?" One of them, a tall boy with silver hair, scoffed. "She doesn't even have her staff out. She'll be gone in the first 5 minutes." "She won't last 3," another added, flipping a small dagger between his fingers. I let their words roll off me like water over stone. Their arrogance was my greatest weapon. Overconfidence made people sloppy, and I had no intention of playing by their rules. Magic was only as strong as the mind that wielded it, and I had spent years training mine to see through deception, to plant doubt, to control perception itself. The signal to begin rang through the air, a crisp chime that marked the start of the preliminary duels. Around me, the other competitors wasted no time in unleashing their spells. Flames erupted, lightning crackled, and waves of raw energy surged forward. It was a spectacle designed to impress, but I saw through the bravado. They were showing off, not strategizing. I did not move. Instead, I let my illusions do the work. The first opponent to approach me was a boy clad in dark robes, his hands glowing with arcane energy. He smirked, raising a hand to cast. But before he could release the spell, he hesitated. His eyes flickered to his left, where a second version of me stood, mirroring my stance. Confusion rippled across his face. Was I real? Was I a projection? The uncertainty stalled him for just a moment, but that was all I needed. A small, timed mechanism beneath the floor clicked. A gust of wind burst from the vents, sweeping dust into his eyes. He stumbled back, momentarily blinded. I moved in swiftly, tapping the sigil on his belt, the one that marked him as a participant. A simple touch, and his mark turned to ash. He was eliminated before he could even react. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My rivals, who had mocked me mere moments before, watched with narrowed eyes. The next attacker came at me from behind, thinking I was unaware. He was fast, his dagger gleaming as he lunged. But the instant before his blade could reach me, he swiped through empty air. I had never been there at all. A reflection of myself, crafted through a carefully placed mirror, had fooled him. The real me stood to the side, untouched and waiting. He turned, bewildered, and in his hesitation, I triggered another trick, a perfectly positioned light burst, flashing just as he regained his senses. He winced, blinking rapidly, and I pressed my advantage, knocking his sigil away with a calculated flick of my wrist. Another one down. The murmurs in the audience grew louder. Whispers spread like wildfire, questioning what they were seeing. Was it magic, trickery, or something else entirely? My rivals weren't laughing anymore. They were watching me now with suspicion, their bravado cracking at the edges. The silver-haired boy from earlier, the loudest of them all, stepped forward, expression darkening. He hadn't attacked yet. He was smart enough to see the pattern. "No spells," he muttered, eyes scanning the area around me. "No power, just tricks." He flicked his fingers, and a surge of energy rippled outward, disrupting the air, distorting reflections, shattering illusions. The mirrors I had hidden cracked under the force, revealing the simple devices I had planted. The crowd gasped. For a brief moment, silence hung between us. Then he smirked. "I knew it. You're nothing but a fraud." The others took up his cry, emboldened by the sight of my shattered deceptions. I smiled. They thought they had won. They thought unveiling my tricks had robbed me of my power. But they had only played into my hands. I stepped forward, meeting the silver-haired boy's gaze. "Then come and face me." He didn't hesitate. He launched his attack, a spear of lightning aimed directly at my chest. And then I was gone. Not an illusion, not a mirror trick, just simple, calculated movement. I had studied the patterns of every fighter here. I had watched their stances, their tells, the slight shifts in weight that revealed their intentions. He had fallen for the same mistake as the others, assuming I was static, assuming that once my illusions were broken, I had nothing left. But deception wasn't just about smoke and mirrors. It was about expectation. I reappeared behind him in an instant, my movements precise, my hand already reaching for his sigil. He turned too late, his reflexes a fraction slower than my calculation. My fingers grazed his mark, and just like that, his symbol burned away. Eliminated. The crowd erupted. The rivals who had mocked me stood frozen, disbelief painting their faces. I exhaled, steadying my breath, and turned to face the remaining duelists. One by one, they took a step back. Perhaps I wasn't a joke after all. I stand before the Grand Magister, my breath steady, my heart a controlled fire beneath my ribs. The chamber hums with the murmurs of the gathered nobles, their judgment pressing against me like a weight I refuse to carry. I have fought, I have bled, and now the Grand Magister has spoken. I am a legitimate duelist. Yet Valor remains unimpressed. His gaze, sharp as a dagger, rests on me from his grand throne, his lips curling in disdain. "A trickster playing pretend," he scoffs, his voice carrying across the hall. A few chuckles ripple through the room, but I catch the uneasy shifting of some, those who have seen me fight, those who know the truth. I do not argue. I do not defend myself. Instead, I grin. Let him underestimate me. Let them all think I am nothing more than a mirage, a shadow, a fleeting illusion. The Grand Magister's eyes flicker with amusement, but he remains silent. He knows better than to challenge Valor outright. Instead, he gestures towards me, his golden robe flowing as he does. "Nadia," he says, voice even. "As you have proven yourself, you shall be granted another duel to solidify your standing. The council will select your opponent." My grin widens. "Very well." Valor leans forward now, interest sparking behind his cold exterior. "Allow me to select her opponent, Grand Magister, If she is truly worthy, she should have no issue. There it is. The moment I wanted. The trap he believes he has laid for me. The Grand Magister lifts a brow, but does not deny him. Very well, Lord Valor. Who do you propose? Valor's smirk is slow, measured. Darius the Red. A collective gasp swells in the chamber. Darius, one of the most fearsome duelists in the kingdom, his blade said to sing through the air like a cursed melody. He is a warrior who has felled men thrice my size, whose swordplay is as merciless as it is precise. I feel the weight of their stares, the anticipation thick like fog. I do not waver. I accept. The Grand Magister regards me, his expression unreadable. He inclines his head slightly. Then it is decided. You will face Darius the Red at dawn. Prepare yourself. Valor's smirk deepens, satisfied. He believes he has won before the duel has even begun. But he does not know me. He does not know what I am capable of. That night, I do not sleep. I do not waste time fearing what is to come. Instead, I prepare. My blade, my footwork, my mind, all must be sharper than ever. The stars watch over me as I practice. Their light, my silent witnesses. Every movement is calculated, every strike a whispered promise of victory. At dawn, as the sky burns with the first kiss of the sun, I step onto the dueling grounds. Darius is already there, his red cloak fluttering behind him. He is a mountain of a man, his presence alone enough to crush weaker souls. His eyes flick over me with mild curiosity but no fear. Good. I want him to think this will be easy. The arena is silent as we take our places. The Grand Magister stands as the overseer, while Valor watches from above, waiting for my downfall. Darius draws his blade, the steel glinting cruelly. I draw mine, exhaling slow. I feel the weight of it, the familiar promise of its edge. The Grand Magister raises his hand. Begin. Darius lunges first, as I expected. A straightforward assault, meant to overpower me with sheer force. I sidestep, my blade whispering against his as I redirect his strike. He blinks, surprised, but recovers quickly. Good. I want him to keep underestimating me. Our blades clash in a flurry of motion, his strength meeting my precision. He presses forward, each strike heavier than the last. I yield where needed, let him chase me, let him believe he is in control. And then, when the moment is right, I strike. My blade slips past his defenses, drawing a thin line of crimson across his forearm. It is shallow, a mere whisper of what I am capable of. Darius exhales sharply, stepping back. Surprise flickers in his eyes. I do not let him dwell on it. I press forward, my attacks coming faster, sharper, unpredictable. He is forced to adjust, forced to acknowledge that I am no mere trickster. The fight rages on, our movements blurring into a deadly dance. I can feel the shift in the air, the moment realization dawns in Darius's eyes. I am not playing pretend. With a final decisive strike, I send his sword clattering to the ground. The chamber holds its breath. Darius stares at me, his chest rising and falling. Then, slowly, he inclines his head. Acknowledgement. I turn to Valor, my grin sharp, triumphant. Still think I'm a trickster? The roar of the crowd is distant, muffled by the thunderous pulse in my ears. Valor looms before me, his form crackling with an unnatural fusion of fire and lightning, his eyes burning with a confidence I refuse to acknowledge. I am not afraid. I will not be afraid. His first strike comes swift and brutal. A lance of fire spears toward me, hissing through the air like a serpent of molten fury. I twist, letting my instincts guide me, rolling just as the flames scorch the ground where I stood a heartbeat ago. The heat brushes my cheek, but I am already moving. Valor scowls. He expected fear, hesitation, neither of which I intend to grant him. He lifts his hand, electricity sparking between his fingers, and hurls a bolt of lightning toward me. The bright flare nearly blinds me, but I use the moment to slip behind one of the stone pillars dotting the arena. The bolt strikes the column, shattering part of it into a shower of debris. I don't wait for the dust to settle. I vault over the fallen rubble, closing the distance between us. He's powerful, far more than I expected, but he underestimates me. That is his first mistake. You're fast, Valor muses, eyes narrowing. He lifts his hand again, this time summoning a wall of flame that encircles me. But how long can you dance? The fire rushes in. The heat is suffocating, curling at my lungs, but I refuse to yield. I step forward, my mind racing. Fire and lightning, destructive forces, but forces that rely on control, on precision. I turn sharply, kicking a broken stone from the shattered pillar into the flames. As expected, the fire does not consume it completely. It merely displaces it. An opening. With a breath, I lunge through, my body twisting mid-air to avoid the licks of fire that grasp at my limbs. The moment I clear the flames, I roll and regain my footing, my eyes locking onto Valor's. For the first time, his smug expression falters. I grin. You talk too much. With a flick of his wrist, the ground beneath me trembles as lightning crackles along the stones, racing toward my feet. I leap to the side, my boots skidding against the polished floor, narrowly avoiding the shock meant to paralyze me. I need to change the rhythm of this fight. Ducking low, I push forward in a blur of motion, forcing him to react. He raises a wall of fire between us, but I don't stop. Instead, I feint left, then dive right, rolling beneath the flames before launching myself upward. My fist connects with his jaw, sending a sharp shockwave of pain up my arm, but I feel the satisfying impact before I pull back. Valor staggers, fire sputtering at his fingertips. His gaze sharpens with something almost akin to respect, but I see the flicker of irritation there as well. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, his lip bleeding. No more games, then, he growls. He raises both hands, and the temperature in the arena spikes. The very air hums with energy. The crowd falls silent. I brace myself as the storm gathers around him. Fire erupts from the ground, spiraling toward the sky in a massive inferno. Lightning streaks through the flames, creating a vortex of raw, untamed destruction. The entire arena trembles under the force of his magic. I grit my teeth. I can't outrun this. My mind races. If I can't dodge, I have to redirect. But how? Then it clicks. Fire needs air. Lightning needs a path. If I can break his concentration. I exhale sharply, lowering my stance. The moment he releases the inferno, I sprint toward it. The audience gasps, but I trust my instincts. At the last second, I pivot sharply, using the heated currents to propel myself sideways, avoiding the brunt of the attack. As I do, I grab a handful of sand from the scorched floor and hurl it toward Valor's face. It's a small trick, but it works. The grit catches in his eyes and his concentration wavers. The flames falter. The lightning disperses. I don't waste time. I charge forward, seizing the moment. Before he can recover, I land a solid kick to his chest, sending him stumbling backward. He crashes onto the ground, his breath leaving him in a sharp exhale. The crowd erupts in chaos. I don't move, my body coiled like a spring, waiting for him to rise. Valor groans, pushing himself up onto one elbow. He looks up at me, blinking away the dust. Then, to my surprise, he laughs. "Well played, Nadia," he says, rubbing his jaw. "I underestimated you." I offer him no reply, my pulse still racing, my hands still clenched. I do not trust this sudden shift in demeanor. The duel is not yet over, and I intend to win. The moment the fog bomb burst, a thick silver haze swallowed the battlefield whole. The acrid scent of burning minerals bit at the air, and for the first time in this match I had space to breathe. I knew better than to assume that would last. Valor's sneer cut through the smoke as clearly as if I could still see his face. "Child's play, Nadia. A bit of mist won't save you." I didn't answer. Instead, I pressed my back against the cool metal of the reflective shard I had embedded into the stone floor moments before launching the fog bomb. A trap woven into a performance, a perfect illusion of desperation masking careful design. He wouldn't see it, not yet. The first crackle of magic split through the mist, electric blue and searing hot. I felt it more than saw it, the energy slicing through the fog, looking for me. But Valor wasn't aiming at me. Not exactly. He was guessing, reading movements that weren't there, striking shadows cast by my own deceptions. A second blast followed, and then a third, each one striking reflective surfaces I had hidden through the field. A shimmer in the fog, a fractured beam of energy, and then the sound I had been waiting for. A startled grunt, the first sign of doubt. Valor had miscalculated. The crowd gasped, the sound rolling through the arena like the first tremors of an earthquake. My heartbeat surged. I had turned his own magic against him. "Tricks," Valor spat, but there was something new in his voice. Frustration. Good. I moved quickly, shifting through the fog like a whisper, my feet barely scuffing the stone. Another pulse of magic struck behind me, but this time I didn't have to look to know it missed. The echoes of its impact against my hidden mirrors sent light splintering in all directions. Even if Valor couldn't see me, I knew exactly where he was. More importantly, I knew where his magic was bouncing. I flicked my fingers, sending a small, near-invisible thread of energy to one of the large mirrors positioned just to his left. My trap was nearly complete. Valor's magic rebounded again, deflected by the reflective shards. His own spell lashed toward him, and this time he saw it too late. A searing arc of energy grazed his shoulder. He let out a sharp breath, staggering back. It wasn't a lethal hit, but it was enough. Enough to prove he could bleed, enough to rattle his confidence. The fog swirled between us, thick, unrelenting. I could see him now, a vague silhouette through the mist. His posture was rigid, one arm lifted to the wound at his shoulder, the other clenched into a fist. Anger, resentment, maybe, just maybe, a touch of fear. I smiled. Still think it's just theatrics? Valor didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lifted his free hand, palm up, magic swirling to life in a slow, deliberate pulse. A golden glow stark against the silver haze. No more reckless strikes. He was thinking now, adapting, dangerous. "I'll admit," he said at last, "you're more of a nuisance than I expected. Flattery won't save you." I shifted my stance, already calculating my next move. The mist was beginning to thin. The audience would want a finale, and I intended to give them one. With a sharp breath, I reached into my belt, fingers curling around the final ace up my sleeve. A prism shard. Small, unassuming, but laced with a very particular enchantment. I only had one shot at this. Valor made the first move, hurling another bolt of energy my way. Controlled this time, directed right at me. Perfect. I threw the prism shard into the air, twisting my body to avoid the strike at the last possible moment. His magic hit the shard mid-flight, and the enchantment took hold. Light fractured in every direction, a cascade of colors dancing through the dissipating fog. The audience gasped again, dazzled by the spectacle. But I wasn't just putting on a show. The spell, split a dozen times over, rebounded not once, but in a chaotic storm of reflections. Valor's own power turned against him, streaking toward him from every angle. For the first time, I saw real panic flicker across his face. He threw up a shield, barely managing to absorb the brunt of the attack, but not all of it. A second strike caught him square in the chest, sending him stumbling back. Dust and shattered stone erupted around him as he hit the ground. The fog was gone now, fully dispersed, revealing the battlefield in all its devastation. Scorched lines where magic had struck. Splintered mirrors reflecting the stunned expression on Valor's face. And me, standing in the center of it all, very much still on my feet. Silence. Then thunderous applause. I let out a slow breath, the tension in my limbs easing just enough to let the moment settle. I had done it, not just survived. I had won. Valor groaned, pushing himself up onto one elbow. His expression was unreadable, his pride no doubt bruised more than his body. And yet, when his gaze met mine, there was something else there too, a begrudging respect. I tilted my head, offering him the barest hint of a smile. "Still think it was just theatrics?" I repeated. He let out a short, breathless chuckle. "Maybe not." I took a slow, measured step to the left, feeling the weight of Valor's gaze pressing against my skin. His fury had begun as a controlled fire, steady and hot, but now it was untamed, a wildfire consuming the careful precision of his magic. His brow furrowed, his lips curled in distaste, but I could see the hesitation creeping in at the corners of his expression. He had underestimated me. Good. My hand twitched near my waist, just a flicker of movement. Nothing drastic, nothing to set off an actual attack, but enough to make him wonder. Was I reaching for a weapon? Had I already set a trap? His fingers twitched in response, conjuring a faint glow of magic at his fingertips before fading again. A mistake. A waste of energy. I expected more from you, Valor, I murmured, letting the disappointment drip from my voice like honey. They say you're a master of the arcane, but so far all I see is a man afraid of his own shadow. His nostrils flared and a thin vein pulsed at his temple. He was trying to rein himself in, but I had him. I knew men like Valor. Proud, intelligent, but prone to emotion. If I couldn't outmatch his magic, I would make him outmatch himself. Behind him, Finn lingered, silent but wide-eyed. He'd seen me fight before, but this wasn't about combat. This was about control. The moment Valor stopped thinking, the moment he let his rage dictate his actions, he was mine to command. I shifted again, barely a breath of movement, but I saw the way his eyes flicked toward my hands, toward the ground beneath us. He was imagining things now, seeing traps where there were none. He stepped to the right, then hesitated as if reconsidering his own instinct. "What's wrong?" I cooed, tilting my head slightly. "You seem tense." The flare of magic at his fingertips pulsed again, erratic now, unfocused. He was unraveling. "I don't need tricks to best you," he sneered, but his voice lacked its usual venom. He was trying to convince himself more than me. "Are you sure?" I raised a brow. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're hesitating. Do you feel it, Valor? The doubt creeping in, the uncertainty?" I took another slow step forward, and he flinched before covering it with a sneer. "You can't even tell if I'm bluffing, can you?" His jaw clenched. Then, in a burst of frustration, he slashed a hand through the air. A streak of searing blue magic crackled toward me. I barely twisted out of its path, feeling the heat graze my arm as it splintered into the stone behind me. A reckless move. "You missed," I taunted. His eyes darkened, and I knew then that he was done thinking. He was going to rely on brute force now. Perfect. I darted sideways, forcing him to turn sharply. His breathing was heavier, his movements jerky, uncoordinated. I was leading him exactly where I wanted him, just a few more steps. Another flicker of my fingers, another sharp glance downward as if he had stepped into something. His gaze darted to the ground instinctively, and I lunged. With a twist of my body, I slid behind him, my blade, real this time, flashing to his throat. His breath hitched, and for the first time I felt the raw vulnerability in his stance. "Checkmate," I whispered into his ear. Silence stretched between us. Finn exhaled from across the room, an incredulous laugh caught somewhere in his throat. Valor stiffened, his pride and rage warring with the undeniable truth. He had been played. I pressed the blade just enough for him to feel the bite of steel against his skin. Magic's a wonderful thing, I mused, but it's nothing compared to the human mind. I stepped back, releasing him. He jerked away, spinning on me, his magic flaring again. But this time it flickered and died in his palm. He was spent. His own frustration had drained him more than my blade ever could. Finn approached cautiously. That was incredible. I sheathed my dagger. That, I said, was the art of distraction. I barely had time to brace myself before the explosion rocked the arena. The raw force of it surged through my bones, sending me skidding backward in a cloud of dust and magical debris. But I had planned for this moment. I had calculated every step, every breath, leading to this. When the dust settled, I saw him sprawled on the ground. Valor, the undefeated, the sorcerer who had brought kingdoms to their knees, lay before me. His robes tattered, his silver hair streaked with soot. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, and his fingers twitched as if trying to summon another spell. But his own wards had turned against him, his arrogance blinding him to the trap I had woven into his own magic. I took a slow step forward, feeling the power hum beneath my skin, the remnants of my spellwork crackling around me. My heart pounded in my ears, but I kept my voice steady. "It's over, Valor." His head snapped up, his eyes, still burning with defiance, fixing on me. He was wounded, but not broken. Not yet. "You think you've won," he rasped, blood trailing from the corner of his mouth. "You think I will fall so easily?" I clenched my fists, forcing myself to ignore the exhaustion gnawing at my limbs. "You already have." He let out a dry, mirthless laugh and struggled to push himself up. For a moment, I considered letting him, but then I saw it. The flicker of magic, the last-ditch effort to weave another spell. A desperate attempt to turn the tide once more. "No," I murmured. With a flick of my fingers, I sent a current of energy surging toward him, shattering his half-formed spell before it could take shape. He hissed in pain, his body collapsing back onto the scorched ground. I exhaled sharply. "You can't keep doing this, Valor. You're done." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, to my surprise, a chuckle rumbled from his throat, low and bitter. "I underestimated you." I tilted my head, studying him. "You did." His lips curled into a wry, pained smirk. "Clever girl." I had spent years preparing for this fight, for the moment I would stand against the most powerful sorcerer of our time. But now that I had him at my feet, the weight of it settled heavily on my shoulders. "I should kill you," I said quietly. "End this once and for all." Valor's smirk faded, replaced by something unreadable. "Then do it." I hesitated. He was testing me, seeing if I had the resolve to finish what I started. Killing him would be the logical choice, the safest choice. But logic had never been my greatest strength. I had always relied on instinct, and instinct told me something else entirely. Instead of striking him down, I reached into the folds of my cloak and pulled out a small crystal vial. The shimmering liquid inside pulsed softly with light. A containment spell. Valor's eyes narrowed. What are you? I didn't give him time to finish. With a whispered incantation, the vial's magic surged outward, wrapping around him in tendrils of silver light. He struggled, but he was too weak to fight it. Slowly, the magic pulled him inward, drawing him into the containment spell, sealing him within the crystal prison. I closed my fingers around the vial and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was over. The world around me seemed eerily silent now, as if even the air itself was holding its breath. I looked down at the vial, at the swirling magic within. Valor had been defeated, but I knew this was not the end. His power, his knowledge, it still existed, trapped but not destroyed. And something told me that one day I would have to face him again. But for now, I turned away from the battlefield and walked toward the rising sun, the weight of victory heavy in my grasp. The cheers are deafening, filling the grand hall like rolling thunder. The people of Burrowton chant my name, their voices swelling with admiration, disbelief, and sheer exhilaration. I can hardly believe it myself. My chest rises and falls in heavy breaths, my pulse pounding in my ears. I brace myself as Valor's fury crackles in the air, his face contorted in disbelief. "No!" he seethes, his voice like a blade scraping against stone. "No! This is not how it ends." But it is. I can feel it in my bones. The spell he had woven, intricate and layered with centuries of knowledge, lies broken at my feet. And I, a girl with no magic, have unraveled it. The Grand Magister watches me with an unreadable expression, his robes shimmering with residual magic. He strokes his beard slowly, eyes narrowing as he looks between me and Valor. "You cannot argue with what has already been decided, Valor. She won. The trial is over." Valor turns sharply to him. "But she cheated. She must have. No one without magic." "No one without magic," I interrupt, my voice cutting through his protest, "has ever beaten you before. And that terrifies you, doesn't it?" His expression twists into something darker, something unhinged, and for a moment I fear he might lash out. Consequences be damned. The tension in the room coils like a snake about to strike. I lift my chin, standing tall. "I didn't cheat, Valor. I studied, I watched, I learned. And I found the flaw in your spell. You relied too much on your magic, too little on your wits." His fists clench at his sides, white-knuckled. The air around us hums, his magic seething beneath his skin, desperate for release. But he can do nothing. Not now. Not after losing in front of all of Burrowton. The Grand Magister raises a hand, silencing the last remnants of Valor's protests. "The girl has spoken. The people have seen. Nadia of Burrowton has won, and this matter is settled." The murmuring crowd surges again, voices bubbling with excitement. I feel a hand on my shoulder, firm yet reassuring. I turn to see Lior, his bright eyes gleaming with something between awe and relief. "You did it," he whispers, just for me to hear. "You really did it." A shaky laugh escapes me. I think I did. The Grand Magister steps forward, his gaze heavy upon me. You have accomplished what no one thought possible, Nadia, and yet there is much to discuss. I swallow hard. This victory, though thrilling, though won fairly, has undoubtedly shaken the foundation of everything Burroton has believed for centuries. A girl with no magic bested the greatest wizard. That kind of truth does not sit easily in a world where power is measured by the arcane. The Grand Magister turns to the crowd. Tonight we celebrate, he declares. Tomorrow we reckon with what this means for our future. The revelry begins at once, as townsfolk surge toward me, congratulating me, marveling, asking questions I have no answers to. My heart swells, my mind races. Somewhere in the corner of my eye, I see Valor storming from the hall, his robes billowing behind him like a tempest. I should feel triumphant, and yet a shiver runs down my spine. Valor will not forget this, and neither will Burroton. The moment the Arcane Council made their decision, the air in the Grand Chamber changed. Whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to excited chatter. The unthinkable had happened. Non-magical duelists were now permitted to compete at the highest level, and it was because of me. I should have felt victorious, triumphant even. Instead, an uneasy thrill ran through me, like the moment before a storm hits. Finn turned to me, his blue eyes blazing with something I couldn't quite name. Admiration, determination, or maybe a little bit of both. Nadia, do you know what you just did? I swallowed hard. I think I just changed the game. He let out a breathless laugh, shaking his head. You did more than that. You changed the world. The world. That felt too big, too heavy. I wasn't some chosen hero or grand strategist. I was just someone who refused to believe that magic was the only answer to everything. I had spent years studying, training my body and mind to react with precision and instinct. And now, for the first time, that skill had been acknowledged as something worthy. But with recognition came responsibility. The moment the council made their announcement, I felt the weight of every duelist's gaze settle on me. Some looked at me with curiosity, others with disdain. There would be those who embraced the change, but many more who would resist it. After all, traditions don't shatter overnight. I felt Finn's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. You're not alone in this. I turned to face him, and for the first time since my victory, I let out a slow, relieved breath. No, I guess I'm not. The training grounds hummed with energy. The air was thick with the scent of charred wood and scorched stone from previous duels. Finn and I stood at the edge of the main sparring arena, watching two students battle. One hurled fire bolts, the other dodged, summoning a shimmering wall of water to counter the attacks. It was classic magical dueling, pure explosive power clashing against equally formidable spells. Do you think you can take them? Finn asked, his arms crossed, a small smirk playing at the edges of his lips. Without magic, I mused. Maybe. Finn gave me a sideways glance. You're not just saying that, are you? I met his gaze evenly. No, he grinned. Good. I watched as the fire wielder launched another barrage of attacks, their opponent narrowly avoiding each strike. Magic, for all its power, had its weaknesses. Mages often relied on their abilities like a crutch, assuming their opponent would meet them with equal force. They didn't account for unpredictability, for strategy, for a fighter who knew how to slip between the cracks of their defenses. Finn had realized this too. That was why he had asked me to train him. "All right," I said, turning to him fully. "If you're serious about this, we need to start with the basics. Your magic is an advantage, but you need to stop depending on it." He frowned. "That's easier said than done." I smirked. "Which is why you'll need to unlearn what you think you know about fighting." For the next few weeks we trained in the quiet hours of the morning, before the rest of the academy stirred to life. I pushed Finn harder than I had pushed anyone before, because he wasn't just learning for himself. If he succeeded, if he truly mastered a balance between magic and physical combat, then he would be the first of his kind. At first he struggled. He moved too predictably, relying on magic for things that should have been second nature. But over time, he began to change. His stance became steadier, his reactions sharper. He learned to anticipate movement, to recognize patterns, to think 2 steps ahead of his opponent rather than throwing out a spell and hoping it worked. The first time he bested me in a sparring match, I knew he had crossed a threshold. He panted, sweat dripping from his forehead, but his expression was triumphant. "I did it," I grinned. "Yeah, you did." He took a deep breath, his excitement barely contained. This changes everything." It did. Because if Finn could do it, others could too. Word spread quickly. It wasn't long before more duelists, both magical and non-magical, began to take notice. Some laughed, dismissing Finn's training as a foolish experiment. Others watched with curiosity, and then, one by one, they started coming to me. They wanted to learn, and I taught them. At first it was just a handful of students, then a dozen, then more. Fighters who had never been given a chance. Mages who wanted to sharpen their instincts. They trained together, learned from each other, grew stronger. It was slow, but it was happening. Of course, not everyone was happy about it. One afternoon, as I was packing up from a session, a voice cut through the air. "So, you think you're some kind of revolutionary, do you?" I turned to see Elias standing near the edge of the training grounds. He was one of the Academy's most skilled duelists, a prodigy of elemental magic. He regarded me with thinly veiled contempt, arms crossed over his chest. "Teaching people to fight like common brawlers. Do you really think this will change anything?" I met his gaze steadily. "It already has." He scoffed. "You're naive. Magic has always been the defining force of power. You can't just train your way to an equal playing field." I stepped closer, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. "Then fight me." Elias's eyes narrowed. "What?" "Duel me," I said. "No magic, just skill." He hesitated. For a moment I thought he'd refuse, but then he smirked. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." The duel was set for the next evening. Word spread like wildfire. By the time we stepped into the arena, the stands were packed. I saw Finn in the front row, his jaw tight with tension. Elias stood opposite me, rolling his shoulders. Last chance to back out, I smirked. I was about to say the same to you. The signal was given. The duel began. Elias was fast. I was faster. He lunged. Fists aimed for my ribs, but I sidestepped, letting his momentum work against him. He stumbled, barely recovering before I struck, my foot sweeping his leg out from under him. He hit the ground hard, breath rushing from his lungs. The crowd went silent. Elias scrambled up, glaring. He attacked again, this time more measured, more controlled. But I had spent my life learning how to read opponents. I saw the tension in his muscles before he moved, the slight shift in his stance that telegraphed his next strike. I countered, twisting around him, locking his arm behind his back in a flash. "Yield," I murmured. His breath was ragged. He struggled but found no escape. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he said, "I yield." Silence. Then cheers. The world had changed, and it wasn't done changing yet. The wind sweeps over the battlefield, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant fires. The ghosts of past struggles whisper in my ears. But today, there is no fear, only hope. I stand where I once fell, where I once rose again, and now where others gather with hesitant but determined hearts. Men and women of all ages, of all walks of life, stand before me. Some grip crude weapons, others wear only the rags of those who have spent too long under the heel of those with magic. But their eyes burn with something familiar, something I recognize in the deepest parts of myself. Mistress Calla watches from a short distance away, arms crossed, her usual severe expression softened by pride. I feel her gaze settle on me, but I don't turn. I already know what she will say. "You've done something incredible," she says, and her voice is firm but warm. I smile, the weight of her words settling over me like a comforting cloak. But I do not need them to know what I have done. I was never fighting to prove myself. I fought because someone had to. And now, standing before those who come seeking the same strength, I realize that my battle was never just mine to begin with. A young woman steps forward from the group, her fists clenched, shoulders squared. "How?" she asks. The single word is filled with so much. How do we fight? How do we stand when they crush us? How do we win against those who wield power beyond our grasp? I glance at Mistress Calla once before turning my full attention to the gathered souls before me. "Not with magic," I say, and I hear the ripple of uncertainty move through them. Not with what they expect, but with something they cannot understand. The young woman nods, her fear giving way to something sharper. "Teach us." I crouch, pressing my fingers into the dirt beneath me. "We begin here," I say, "not in strength, but in understanding. We learn how they fight, we learn how they think, and then we do what they believe is impossible." More step forward, hesitant at first, but then bolder. They listen, they ask, and for the first time I see a movement growing. Not just a handful of rebels fighting in the dark, but something greater. Mistress Calla moves beside me, her voice low. They will call you a legend. I shake my head. They don't need a legend. They need a chance. And so I give it to them. I teach them what I learned through blood and hardship. That power is not always in what is gifted, but in what is earned. That standing is sometimes enough. That courage is a weapon they cannot take from us. Days pass, then weeks. We train in the dead of night, away from watching eyes. We learn to strike where it will hurt most, to move where they least expect, to fight with everything except what they assume we must. The first time we win, it is a small victory. A supply caravan overturned, a message intercepted, a guard post abandoned before it could report back. But the small victories build, and with each success, those without magic realize what I have known all along. They are not powerless. The legends will speak of my name, but I do not fight for them. I fight for the ones standing beside me, for the ones who have yet to step forward, for the ones who have always believed they had no choice but to bow. One day we will stand together not as rebels, but as equals. One day the battlefield will no longer be needed, but until that day comes, I will fight, and I will teach, and I will lead. Not as a legend, but as one of them.